somebody who knows a good shot when they see it and is not afraid to say cut, print, and move on to the next one. Is not afraid to move on. He's full of confidence. He's full of fun. We had a lot of fun on his set. There were jokes and kidding around all the time. I can't remember now all the things that happened on that set, but there were practical jokes, and he was part of it. Everybody on his set has fun. The guy who loads the camera, the guy who brings the coffee, not just the big guys. Everybody on that set has fun. It was a joyous set. I had not had a big start in many years at that point, and I was thrilled to get that job. He handed me that job. My career was at the bottom, 27 years of slippage, and I was at the bottom. And I have breakfast every morning at a place on Santa Monica Boulevard. You got to be somewhere. You got to have a spot. And I was in my spot, and he walked in one day, and I saw him over there. I was sitting with another actor, Frank Pesh, who I've done a lot of movies with, Frank. And in walks Quentin, and I said, hey. And he came over, and we sat down, and we blah, blah, and I asked him what he was doing. He said he was writing an adaptation of Rum Punch. And he said, why don't you read it? And I did. And 6 months later, I came into my spot. It was a cold, rainy day, and the curtains were down on the patio of that restaurant. They were, plastic curtains. You can hardly see through them. And as I walked in, I didn't see him until I walked out onto the patio, and he was sitting in my spot. And as I walked up to him, he lifted up this script, and he handed it to me, and he said, here, read this, see if you'll like it. Wow. I read it. The following day, I called him up. I said, I read the script. I said, what character exactly were you thinking? He said, well, Max Cherry. And I said, really? And so we had breakfast that morning, or the following, that morning probably. It was real quick. Everything happened right one day after another. And he came over for breakfast, and I remember telling him, because I had the experience before, there's always a bigger actor, somebody bigger on the ladder who wants the job. And I said to him, look, I'm thrilled that you think of me that way, but I'm not sure that the distributor is going to let you hire me because, they want somebody bigger than that in the role. And he said to me, I hire anybody I want. It came as a gigantic surprise to me that Quentin Tarantino was that big. Nobody's that big. But he had Harvey Weinstein going for him. The two of them are like gang members. These guys, they got each other's backs. And when Quentin said he wanted me for it, Harvey said yes. And as I say, I know that all the big actors, agents pummeled the two of them for this job. But as I say, he gave it to me, and watching it, I cannot tell you how thrilled and glad I am, and how lucky I feel to be cast in a movie this good.
Who'd you beat out for it?
No, trust me when I tell you, I'm overrated, and so.
Who'd you beat out for it?
Sorry?
Who'd you beat out for it?
I don't have a clue, but all the big guys, I heard names, and they're in print. There were stories written at the time about whose agent came in, and whoever they are, I am grateful that they did not get it.
Awesome. So do you, I use my phone for my notes. I'm not being rude.
No.
And then you check your Facebook while we're doing this. Just want to clarify. Any interaction with De Niro? I know you didn't have any, except for that one scene on screen, if I recall.
Very, very little. There was one. He was on the set one day, I think. I wasn't there in the department store. There's a look between us, and I was not there. He was not there when I was there. Only the one day where he asked if he could have a cup of coffee. As I remember, that's all I did. And I ran into him a couple of years ago at a party for for some movie that was nominated, and that's the only contact I've ever had with Robert De Niro.
Does he joke around on set when everyone else is, or is that a
Does who?
De Niro? Is he having fun with everyone else? Or is
Oh,
that a-
I don't know. He
He's
was on
stoic.
so little, and he was stoic in the role. So he's keeps it pretty steady. What little I have ever known, I admire him greatly. He's terrific. He was always a tough guy, and then he did Midnight. What was it called?
Like,
No.
Midnight Run.
Midnight Run. That's when I said, wow, this guy can do comedy. He's not just a dramatic actor, he does comedy. And so there you go. I admire him greatly.
What was the most difficult scene to shoot technically?
Boy, I'm honestly, nothing comes to mind. You get ready every day, you prepare the work, you come to the set, you're careful with the cameraman and everybody else who's in the scene. You want to make sure that if you're in support, that you deliver what the other actor needs. It's a question of knowing what the writer needs, and so when you shoot this little fraction of film, delivering what the writer needs. The director has a need for you, he asks you to do a shot for him. The one who set the lights hopes you're in them. The one listening for the words got to hear them right, otherwise at the end of the shot somebody says, no good for sound, start again. If I do something too big for the shot that I'm in, somebody behind the camera says, no good for composition. If I put the cup in the wrong spot, somebody says, no good for continuity. You got to deliver to everybody on that set. It is always the same job, no matter what the picture is, no matter what the shot is. You owe something to everybody on that set. Everybody is your boss, and that includes the other actor. If the other actor has to do this emotionally in the scene, I got to build them a little ramp so the other actor can do this emotionally in the scene. And for the one who's cutting this movie together, they want an audience to get into a roller coaster car and have a ride, and so I've got to be aware of the downs and the ups of this roller coaster ride, and I got to be believable going around the turns, otherwise the audience will not be with me at the end of the ride. And for the one who hired me, I got to help them bring their schedule in on time. It all comes down to how much money you got, how many days you got to shoot, how many times you can shoot it, and get the shots you need to make the movie. I cannot think of anything that was awfully hard to do. The shots were good shots, and the script was exceedingly good. Every movie seems to be exactly the same. It's a series of shots, and some of them are more interesting than others. And if you got an interesting scene, for instance, in something recent, Twin Peaks, which David Lynch hired me to do this version of Twin Peaks. I did not do the first version of it, but I'm in this one. And one day he came to me and he gave me a piece of paper, and he said, here, we're going to shoot this in 20 minutes. And it was a little tiny telephone scene with my brother, who is dying and in the hospital. And he said, here, we're going to shoot this in 20 minutes. And it was something he'd just written. And somebody typed it up. And I went in the corner and I learned it real quick. And it was a series of things back and forth. That I can tell you, for my own personal delight, was a lovely scene, lovely shot to do. We did it once. We shot it. He said, cut, print, and that was the end of that shot. I did it once, and it was a lovely little interaction between me and my brother. He's in the hospital. I don't know if anybody saw this Twin Peaks, but it's in one of the early episodes. And so I can say with certainty that I was thrilled to have gotten away with, delivering on the first shot. And there you go. Once in a while, there's a thrill in it, and that was one of them.